Catholic Moments, Episode 106, Deanna Witkowski.
Blooming, finding joy in the journey and hope in the heaven yet to come. Blooming.
Hello and welcome to Catholic Moments. And now, here's your host and my mom, Lisa Hendy.
Thanks, Eric, and thanks, of course, to Teresa Smith, the wonderful singer of our theme song, Blooming. And you can always visit Teresa at her website at www.teresasmithmusic.com. Well, welcome, everyone, to another episode of Catholic Moments, the show from CatholicMom.com, where we talk about everything faith, family, and fun from a Catholic perspective. And this week, it's a little bit older perspective. Thank you all for the warm birthday wishes. Yes, I am a year older, or at least a few days older than last week, but officially 46 years old. And I want to thank everybody who sent me kind, warm birthday wishes, including my good friend, Jeff Young, the Catholic foodie.
Lisa, this is Jeff Young, the Catholic foodie. I just wanted to call and say happy birthday. Yesterday, Char pointed out to me that you and I share the same birthday. So I wanted to take an opportunity to say happy birthday. I hope you're going to do something fun and exciting and relaxing and enjoyable today. And I'll be thinking about you tonight when I'm at my favorite pizza parlor, Pizza Man of Covington. And we're going to have some really good pizza. I can't think of anything better to do on my birthday than eat some delicious pizza with my wife, my beautiful wife Char, and our three wonderful children. So, of course, I'm probably going to have an Abita beer of some sort along with my pizza, so whatever they happen to have on tap, I guess. But anyway, I wanted to wish you once again a very happy birthday, and you're in our thoughts and prayers. God bless. Bye-bye.
Hey, Jeff, so great to hear from you, and thanks so much for your warm birthday greetings, and I hope you had a wonderful birthday celebration, too. That pizza sounds really good, and I hope that you enjoyed your beer and that you and Char had a great time with the kids on your birthday. I'm really looking forward to meeting you next week at the Catholic New Media celebration. Yes, the time has come. It's finally time. We've been talking about it for a few months here on Catholic Moments, and it's time for all of us to head to San Antonio, Texas for the second annual Catholic New Media celebration, being hosted by SQPN. And I have some exciting news for those of you who aren't able to join us in San Antonio, and that's the fact that you can be with us. Actually, the event is going to be broadcast all day long on SQPN's channel on Ustream, so you can tune in all day and hear from the speakers that will be there talking about the use of Catholic New Media in celebration. I'm going to be one of those speakers, and I'll be speaking in the early afternoon after the lunchtime period. So if you want to tune in, you can hear any of us. Lots of great people there, including our keynote speakers, Patrick Madrid and Father Dave Dwyer, and our wonderful, amazing musical talent being provided by Sarah Bauer. And I do need to mention as well our special sponsors for the celebration. We want to give them lots of credit. Without our sponsors, the event wouldn't be possible, and we really want to thank them, and we want you to be sure to visit their websites as well. The sponsors for this year's Catholic New Media celebration are the Knights of Columbus, My Catholic Voice, which you can find at mycatholicvoice.com, Aquinas and More, they're wonderful sellers of religious books and religious items, Faith and Family, near and dear to my heart. You can find us at faithandfamilylive.com, but you also want to make sure you subscribe to the magazine and check out the podcast. And the Catholic Company, which is one of my personal favorites, and we have had a long-term personal relationship with the Catholic Company over at CatholicMom.com, and I want to thank Chris Cash for his wonderful contributions to this year's Catholic New Media celebration. And again, to thank all of our sponsors. Without you guys, this event would not be happening. And if you want to get in on next year's action as a sponsor, be sure to drop us a note to info@sqpn.com for more information on how you might be able to participate in next year's event as a sponsor. But anyway, I want you to know that we'll have links in the show notes to the Ustream chat room for SQPN the sqpnlive.com channel, and that way you guys can tune in throughout the course of the day if you're not able to be with us in San Antonio. I hope that for those of you who are coming, that I'll have a chance to meet you in person, and please come up and introduce yourself. If you see me, I'll be the older lady, the 46-year-old lady. And I'm looking forward to meeting each and every one of you. And one of my big major sources of excitement about next weekend is spending some time with two of my favorite people, Dee and Deacon Tom Fox. And let's listen in now to Deacon Tom's reflection for this week, which is a very poignant reminder about taking care of our marriages. Here's our favorite online deacon, Deacon Tom Fox.
For this month of June, I've asked Lisa if we could concentrate deacon moments on marriage. Today, my deacon moment is when problems enter or persist in a marriage. Here's a story from back in Colorado. One summer weekend, I preached at all the masses about marriage, and I received many positive comments. However, something happened, and it still touches my heart and calls me to prayer. After each Mass, I stood outside greeting parishioners and visitors. A couple came up to me and asked to speak with me. After I finished with handshakes and hugs and comments from summer visitors, I turned to the couple thinking that perhaps they wanted to speak to me about preparing them for marriage. I asked what I could do for them, and they both asked me for help. They had been married back in the Midwest 1 week earlier. They were on their honeymoon in Rocky Mountain National Park. They became emotional. They were very frightened. They said they'd been arguing from the moment they left for this honeymoon. Rather than a week of love and intimacy and the joy of God's creation, it had become a week of short tempers, disagreements, and it was now at the point that they wondered if they'd made a horrible mistake. 1 week. I gasped silently for a prayer of guidance. I fumbled for words about surrender of self to the other, just as Christ emptied himself and surrendered his life. I said that Christ is the bridegroom of the church and gave himself completely to it. I asked the couple's permission and laid hands on them and prayed over them. And I am still in prayer about this. You and I might wonder how any mature couple prepared by the church, how could they be married a week and consider it a mistake? Most every couple goes through ups and downs. From time to time, we might retreat into doubts and questions. It's normal, and I guess it's okay. But if this is something you regularly and for long periods struggle with, prayer alone may not be the answer to working on your marriage. I always recommend Marriage Encounter, even for couples who just want to dust things off, refined love and respect for each other. For seriously troubled marriages, I recommend Retrovi. As a matter of fact, I put together a number of resources, and I've asked Lisa to put the link to this in the show notes. You've likely heard that we are giving away 4 books on marriage and enhancements to your marriage. Lisa will give you the details. By the way, my wife and I still have dates, even if it's just time spent going to Sam's Club and grabbing a pizza. Dear friends, marriage is God's first sacrament. Remember the joy of your wedding day. Savor every God-given moment that worked for you. Marriage is for keeps. Hang on, and if necessary, get help. This is Deacon Tom. Blessings.
Thank you so much, Deacon Tom, for sharing on this very important topic. And I want to remind you that we'll have links wherever you listen to the show for you to download the marriage document that Deacon Tom has prepared for us. It has great resources. And also, I want to remind you to head over to sqpn.com and leave a comment on any of the June podcast episodes of Catholic Moments for your chance to win one of those 4 great Catholic marriage books that Deacon Tom mentioned in his reflection. Last week, we only had 3 entries, so be sure to get in there before the end of June 30th, to enter for your chance to win one of these great books. So it's a wonderful opportunity for you, and I know you're going to love the books. And I want to thank again our favorite online deacon, Deacon Tom Fox. You can visit Deacon Tom anytime at www.deacontomonline. And next up, we're going to hear from another of our favorites. Here's our friend Sarah Reinhard with this week's Merry Moment.
Hello, my name's Elizabeth.
And my name's Sarah Reinhard.
It's time for Merry
Moment. On Saturday, June 20th, we celebrate a very special Marian feast, but one that I found confusing until recently. It's the Feast of the Immaculate Heart of Mary. My reflections this week are taken, in part, from my column at today's Catholic Woman. There's a link to the full column in the show notes if you're interested. Devotions to the Sacred Heart of Jesus and the Immaculate Heart of Mary are companions, one leading to the other and back again. The Sacred Heart of Jesus is often shown encircled with thorns, with flames coming out of the top, rays flowing all around it, and a cross at the peak of the flames. In it, we see Jesus' love for us represented in the heart, and the pain he endured in the thorns. His love is so powerful, so all-encompassing, that it comes out from his heart in rays. We must not forget the cross, the suffering, of course, but also the victory, as the pinnacle of our faith. The Immaculate Heart of Mary also has rays surrounding it in a halo of light, but there are a few variations on the image itself. Sometimes it is shown surrounded with roses, with flames coming out of the top. Other times, in addition to the roses and flames, there is a sword piercing the center of the heart. There may be a rose growing out of the flames on top of the heart, or instead of roses ringing the heart, there may be thorns. In all of these variations, we are reminded of Mary's sorrows throughout Jesus' life. In the prophecy of Simeon, at the presentation of Christ in the temple, she's told that a sword will pierce her heart. Then the Holy Family flees to Egypt to escape Herod's killing spree. Later, Mary's heart experiences sorrow when Jesus is lost in the temple. Imagine her pain and sorrow when she met Jesus while he was carrying the cross. Imagine again the torture of watching him die on the cross. Holding his body once it was taken down from the cross, Mary must have felt anguish, and then, burying his body, more of the same. Devotion to Mary's Immaculate Heart always leads us to consider her Son in the most intimate way, at those times when his mother was grieved and in pain. When we find ourselves there, with Jesus, we can pause to reflect on his Sacred Heart, which explodes with love for us. In Christian tradition, the heart is symbolic of the state of the soul. The heart is the seat of our emotions. We describe them as broken and sorrowful, kind and generous, hard and bitter. From the heart, we have the origin of love, the source of our passions. They are on fire with love, yet tender and gentle. Devotion to the hearts of Jesus and Mary, then, is as natural for Christians as saying, "I love you," to both of them. We look to Jesus as our Savior, as the face of God made real. We look to Mary as his mother, as the vessel by which he chose to become human. She was without sin, worthy of the title Immaculate. She had to be without sin, or how could she bear the Messiah, who would himself be sinless? When we consider the Immaculate Heart of Mary, we find ourselves led, again and again, back to Jesus. As we hug her, we see that our arms are touching someone on the other side of her. As we cry to her for help, we find that it is Jesus who is with her, unable to ignore his mother's requests. As we deepen in our love for God and Jesus, we find her encouraging us, though we may not have seen her beside us. On June 20th, consider, if you will, Mary's Immaculate Heart with me. Maybe it's going to be a day when you can start a novena to Mary's Immaculate Heart. Or maybe just a time when you're going to set aside some time to show your affection for her. Until next week, may Mary hold you close to her heart and lead you ever closer to her Son.
Thanks, Sarah and Elizabeth, for that wonderful inspiration on the Immaculate Heart of Mary. And we'll definitely have links in the show notes to Sarah's wonderful column over at Today's Catholic Woman. And you can find out more about the Immaculate Heart of Mary by reading that column. And speaking of Sarah, I had a great phone message this week that I wanted to share with you.
Hello, Lisa. Hello from Sarah. And Dee.
And from Tom. We're in Ohio for the first annual Midwest Catholic New Media Celebration.
We are here with Elizabeth and Meredith, who are two young fans of Catholic Moments and SQPN.
We're praying for you, Lisa, and all your listeners and all those who will gather in San Antonio in about 2 weeks. Blessings. Bye for now. Bye.
Okay, Sarah, I'm pretty sure that if you started driving right now, you could make it to San Antonio in time for next week's New Media Celebration. Seriously, it's so great of you guys to call me. I love all of you, and be sure to visit Sarah at her website at snoringscholar.blogspot.com. And speaking of people who phoned our voice feedback line this week, here's our friend Brian Kravick with an Immaculate update.
Hi, Lisa. This is Brian Kravick from St. Patrick's Immaculate Committee calling with our latest update. It's been less than 8 weeks since public ticket sales began to this highly anticipated event, and we've already sold almost 550 tickets to people from Sacramento all the way down to Bakersfield. We're excited to let your listeners know that anyone who wants to buy a ticket to hear Immaculate speak at St. Patrick's can now log on to the website at www.olmstpatrick.org and purchase their tickets with their credit card through PayPal. We're also very excited about the summer issue of the Fresno Diocese Central California Catholic Life. I've dubbed it the Immaculate Edition. This edition will promote the event with a full-color ad, an in-depth interview with the Immaculate Committee, and a book review of Immaculate's New York Times bestseller, Left to Tell. It's also very exciting to let your listeners know that anyone in the Fresno, Madera area can visit the beautiful new Catholic bookstore, St. Morello Bookstore, adjacent to St. Joachim's Church at 211 North J Street, Madera, to pick up their copy of Left to Tell. And we also thank you, Lisa, for your continued support and promotion of this incredible event. We know we'll see you there, and we hope you'll see a lot of listeners of Catholic Mom there as well. Thank you so much, Lisa. God bless. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Brian. And I want our listeners to know that we're going to have the interview as well as the book review that Brian mentioned regarding this Immaculate event up at CatholicMom.com early next week. So check back to the website and you'll be able to find all of that great news and information. I already have my tickets for the Immaculate event next year, and I'm hope I have them in a safe place so I can actually find them when the time comes next year. But the event tickets are selling fast, so be sure to visit our link in the website for your chance to get those tickets. And I want to thank Brian for calling our voice feedback line and invite you to do the same. You can call me anytime at 206-339-9272 with your news and information, or just to let me know what's happening in your world. I love hearing from our listeners, and I want to thank you again, Brian, for calling and for the gift of your friendship. And speaking of new friends, now we've got our interview for this week. It's a fascinating interview with a lovely Catholic recording artist, Deanna Witkowski. And during the course of the interview, we discuss Deanna's music, which is actually known as sacred jazz. And I want to start off this interview by playing one of my favorite songs from her new CD. And I hope you enjoy it as well, and that you enjoy this conversation with Deanna Witkowski.
The angel said, "The Lord is with me. The Lord is with me in a way He's never been before. His Spirit is my lover. His Son shall fill my womb with holiness and joy. sights. The Lord will stay with me in a way He's never stayed before.
Our guest on today's episode of Catholic Moments is Deanna Witkowski, and Deanna is a very talented pianist, composer, and jazz vocalist, as well as someone who is available to come out and visit your parishes. And I'm very happy to speak with her today about her brand new CD entitled From This Place. And I'd like to welcome Deanna Witkowski. How are you today, Deanna?
I'm great. It's great to be here.
It's great to have you. I've really enjoyed listening to the CD, and so I'm so happy to share about the music that you do. It's a little bit different than some of the other Catholic music that I've heard or spiritual music. So before we get started in talking about the CD, though, I'd love to ask you to just briefly introduce yourself and share a little bit more about yourself.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, I'm a jazz pianist, composer, and vocalist. I'm based out of New York City, and I've been here for about 11 years. I do a lot of different styles of music besides playing jazz. I was a classical piano major in college and came to jazz while I was an undergraduate. Do a lot of instrumental jazz as well as some of the specifically sacred jazz on this recording. So this is my... This new recording From This Place is my fourth recording, but it's the first one where I'm specifically focusing on settings of liturgical texts. So it's been a really neat process to not only put out this recording myself, but to do a lot of interviews and get to talk about my faith. So it's been great.
Well, let's do that, because I understand we are welcoming you to the family. You just joined the church this year at the Easter Vigil. So share with us a little bit about your conversion process and how that's maybe impacted on your music.
Well, I think for me, coming to the Catholic Church has been sort of a long process. I've been a Christian pretty much all my life. I was raised Protestant and went to an evangelical Christian college called Wheaton College in the suburbs of Chicago. And while I was at Wheaton, that was the first time I had the chance for myself to choose where I would attend weekly services, and I ended up pretty much for most of my time at Wheaton attending a couple of Episcopal churches. When I moved to New York in late 97, I moved here with a music director position at an Episcopal church in the city. And so I had been, I would say the Episcopal church, it's probably the closest of the Protestant denominations to Catholicism, at least in terms of, they celebrate the Mass every week, and just in terms of the liturgy. About 5 or 6 years ago, I started reading different books on contemplative prayer and reading some of the Christian mystics like Teresa of Avila and Catherine of Siena and St. John of the Cross. And, I realized all my reading was Catholic reading. And I was really just intrigued by these people I was reading about who would talk about their prayer experiences being just sitting and enjoying the presence of God, and I wondered about that, and ended up going on a silent retreat for about a week and met someone there who is now my spiritual director, and she introduced me to a parish in Manhattan that had a lay spirituality group that I attended for about a year. So it was kind of through that group and going on different retreats where I really felt like I experienced God's love in a really visceral way that I just felt like I was becoming more at home in Catholic settings, and for me just having really deep experiences of God in those settings. So those experiences led me to decide to this past fall go through the RCIA program and then as you said, I was received at the Easter Vigil this year.
So wonderful to hear stories like yours. As a cradle Catholic, I don't have a story like that. So I have the gift that my parents gave me at my birth when they baptized me, and sort of a lifelong tradition of faith. But it's always really interesting and inspiring for me to hear stories like yours of somebody who, as an adult, made this choice to join the faith that we all love so much. So thanks for sharing that. Let's talk about from this place, this CD, and perhaps in leading up to that, you might educate people like me who don't know that much about sacred jazz and how maybe some of the traditions have impacted on this CD that you've created.
Well, this new recording, I call it sacred jazz in some ways for lack of a better term, because I don't really see music as being sacred and secular. I don't see those divides, but since I am somewhat known in the jazz world as a composer and pianist, and most of my previous stuff, a lot of it is predominantly instrumental. So I wanted to give a heads up to people who already knew my music to know that this new recording from this place has a little bit of a different twist to it, in that it's setting sacred text. There's a setting of the Mass. There's several hymns that are more known in Protestant traditions that are reset, so texts from the 19th century, several texts for Vesper services, and then some original texts, but they're all Christian texts. So most of the texts are resettings, taking the text, extricating the music if they were set with a particular hymn tune, and then writing new music to those texts. And the music pretty much, for the most part, happens to be jazz. So there are other musicians who are currently doing this. It's not like a huge field, but I have a good friend who is the minister of music for the jazz ministry at a Lutheran church called St. Peter's in New York that has a jazz vespers every Sunday. There's a tradition of composers like Duke Ellington and Mary Lou Williams who did have an output of sacred music at certain points in their careers. So it's not something totally new, but it's not something totally common either.
Right. And, I have to say that listening to this CD, it's really sort of almost an eclectic CD in that it's got a few different even styles within the jazz, and you've got an a cappella version of a song. And how was it to be creating this while you were going through the process of RCIA and, entering the church?
Well, actually, I wasn't really creating it while I was in RCIA, because I finished all the recording and mixing early fall last year, so around September, October. So I had just started RCIA at that point. I think also just for me, I don't see this recording as being Catholic or Protestant, but definitely, I mean, it's a recording where it's pretty explicit that my faith is showing up. There's several pieces. The one you mentioned that's an a cappella piece for 3 women, that's original text as well as music that was written for a Lessons and Carols service.
I love that song. It's entitled Never Before, one of my favorite tracks on the CD. Talk for a minute, too, about the title track From This Place, which is also an original composition of yours, and what inspired that song?
Well, I wrote that song for a specific event 2 years ago. My quartet was asked to lead a jazz vespers at this church. I mentioned St. Peter's Church in Manhattan, and I wanted to write something new for the day. So I went and read the lectionary text, and of course, one of the texts that's read is about Mary Magdalene going to the empty tomb, and then finally recognizing Christ in the man that she first thinks is someone tending the garden. And I started to just wonder about what her interior journey might have been like from when she wakes up on that day and it just has the images of the crucifixion and everything that's happened through her actual going to the tomb, what she's thinking when the angels ask her why she's weeping, and then to her kind of epiphany moment when she recognizes Christ.
It's really a beautiful song. And again, we're speaking with Deanna Witkowski, and you can find out more about Deanna's work at her website, which is deannajazz.com. And I want to let everyone know that we'll have links to that in the show notes so you can check out the CD. But we have great news that we've got 5 copies of From This Place that we'll be using as a giveaway with this particular podcast. So all you need to do is leave a comment on the show notes anywhere where you are listening to this episode of the Catholic Moments podcast. Leave a valid comment with your name, and you'll be entered into the drawing to win that particular CD From This Place. Deanna, let's talk for a minute about the work that you do in, I would say not work, but the ministry that you do in going out to parishes and churches and sharing music, sharing your talents in a prayerful setting. Tell us a little bit more about that ministry work.
Well, when I left my first staff position at a church where I had been music director here at a church in Manhattan, I realized I had all this music that the congregation had been singing that I had written, and I started thinking, maybe other churches would like to use this music as well. So sometimes when I would go on the road with my group, my trio or quartet, and we would have performances lined up in jazz venues, I started to see if I could add something like to go to a church on Sunday morning and bring in some of my music. So that's just grown a lot. And so now often when I travel, I will work with music directors at a parish ahead of time. I have a whole catalog of my sacred music available at my site that people can pay to download individual pieces, but I'll make the music available to the music director so he or she can introduce that music to their choir or people in the congregation in advance of having me come, because I really feel like my, part of my ministry is to support congregational song. So there's pieces that I'll come in with my trio and perhaps do something as an offertory or whatever, but I really want to be there so that the congregation can be participating as fully as possible. We actually just did a Sunday where we played at 2 churches in the metropolitan Washington, D.C. area because we were there to play at the Kennedy Center, and the church we played at in the morning, it was great because people picked up the music right away. They were singing with full voice.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to be having a DVD of that and putting video clips from that service on my website as well so that other churches can see, because I think sometimes churches get a little nervous about the word jazz. They're not sure what
Yeah,
that
they don't
means,
necessarily know what to expect. You briefly made reference to your Kennedy Center appearance, and I want to talk about that too. You were there for something called Moving with the Spirit, the Sacred Jazz of Mary Lou Williams. What an honor to be able to present your music at an event like that. Tell us a little bit more about what that day was like for you.
Sure. Well, Moving with the Spirit is a project that I created about 3 years ago in conjunction with a friend who's an author named Tammy Kernodle. She wrote a biographer of Mary Lou Williams, who was a great legendary jazz pianist and composer who died in the early 80s. And for about 10 years, from the early 60s to early 70s, she wrote a lot of liturgical music that was all jazz. She actually converted to the Catholic faith and wrote 3 jazz masses. So we were playing as part of a festival called the Mary Lou Williams Women in Jazz Festival dedicated to her. So it was very appropriate that we do this project that combines spoken word from this author, Tammy Kernodle, and then my trio plays musical examples. So we're sort of showing the tradition, the history of sacred jazz, that it's not just me doing this, that there are people like Mary Lou Williams who went before me who have forged ahead. And so it was really an honor to get to do this at the Kennedy Center. I've played on this festival before, but it was nice to actually go and get to do some of my own sacred music, but also some of Mary Lou Williams' music to really let people know that it's there. And I had a lot of people come up to me afterwards and say, oh, we had no idea this was going to be spiritual at all. And, they really, really enjoyed it. So it was a great experience to be there.
Well, you've educated me too, and now I'm curious. I'm going to have to go head over to iTunes or someplace after this conversation and go check out some of that as well. I have a son who plays jazz. He plays bass, so he's in his jazz band at school and in a little jazz combo. So he and I are going to check that out together this week. So, Deanna, as we get ready to wrap up the conversation, I just want to remind everyone that you can visit Deanna's website, and she has video available from that Kennedy Center experience that you can go right on there on the website and check that out, as well as lots of other information about her new CD From This Place and just all the great stuff that she's up to. And you can find that at deannajazz.com. And don't forget to, after you finish listening to the podcast today, to head over to our website and enter your comment for your chance to win one of 5 copies of that CD. Deanna, before we let you get back to work, are there any closing thoughts that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, I think we've been able to cover a lot, but, I would I'd just say to people that aren't really sure about jazz or just don't have a sense of what the sacred jazz stuff is, I just invite them to just really go and as you said, check out my website, check out the history of others who have done this, like Mary Lou Williams. There's so much of her music available at places like iTunes and online. And also, one of the things I really see my ministry being is being very ecumenical, being able to bring this music to Protestant churches, various denominations, as well as to Catholic churches, and also just to invite in people who don't even normally see themselves as part of the church or attend church. So I'm able to do this music in such a variety of settings, and I just hope that a lot of people who are people of faith will check out the music and be inspired by it.
Well, I have been, and I want to thank you for your time and for the great work that you're doing and for just such a terrific CD. I know that it's going to have most played status on my iPod very soon. So I want to thank you for your time today. Our guest, again, has been Deanna Witkowski, and you can visit her at deannajazz.com and be sure to check out her new CD From This Place. Thanks so much, Deanna.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks again to Deanna Witkowski. What a fabulous talent. I'm so happy to have met her and be able to share her music with you. And I hope you'll visit her website at www.deannajazz.com. And I think, as we mentioned during the course of the interview, we've got 5 copies of Deanna's CD to give away. So be sure to head over to catholicmom.com to the contest section. We'll have a link in our show notes where you can enter the contest simply by leaving a comment, and make sure that you leave a valid email address with that comment. And the deadline for that contest is actually going to be June 30th. So make sure you get your comment in before then, and you'll have your chance to win Deanna's beautiful CD. And speaking of contests, we just give you a quick reminder about the 2 other contests that we have going on right now. That's Deacon Tom's marriage book contest, and you enter that one by heading over to sqpn.com. And finally, our Friends Forever Girls doll contest that's happening right now on catholicmom.com, and that one ends on June 20th, so be sure to get your comment in there and have your chance to win one of those beautiful dolls. We are just giving things away left and right around here. So speaking of giving things away, I want to invite you to give away your feedback. How's that for a segue, folks? I'd love to hear from you. Drop me an email anytime to lisa@catholicmom.com. Be my friend on Facebook or formarks.com, and follow me on Twitter. And finally, you can call our voice feedback line anytime, which is my favorite way of hearing from you. Give me a call at 206-339-9272. As we close out the podcast this week, I'd like to offer a prayer. We will be celebrating the solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and we offer this prayer to him in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. O Jesus, reveal your Sacred Heart to me, and show me its attractions. Unite me to it forever. Grant that all my desires and every beat of my heart, which does not cease even while I sleep, may be a witness to you of my love, and may say to you, yes, Lord, I am yours. The pledge of my loyalty to you rests ever in my heart, and shall never cease to be there. Accept the little good that I do, and be pleased to make up for all my wrongdoing, so that I may be able to praise you in time as well as in eternity. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, thank you all for joining us for this week's Catholic Moments. I look forward to speaking with you next week. And until then, have a great week, everybody. Bye-bye.
SQPN, leading the way in Catholic new media.